outside of Hank's guitar. I hope he doesn't mind. I'm really excited to be here tonight. I want to take 1 second before we start the show. This is our final stop on our tour of Ireland and the United Kingdom. And on the entire trip, we have had Tanya with us, who just introduced us, and she's been so great, so I wanted to give her a round of applause. Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about my new book, The Fault in Our Stars, which is only new here, but it's still new in our hearts. And my brother's going to play you some music, we're going to answer some questions. It should be a very fun evening, but I'm going to begin by talking a little bit about the inspiration for the book and also reading from it, but in order to do that I have to borrow someone's copy because I did not bring one on stage because I had to bring the Scottish flag out. It's a race, she won, thank you. What's your name? Marta. Thank God. It could have been one of those hard ones, but it wasn't. So, 13 years ago now, I worked for a few months as a student chaplain at a children's hospital in Ohio, which is like kind of a minister. I was in training to become an Anglican priest, but then I dropped out immediately after finishing my time as a chaplain. Although last night in Manchester we played at church, and I was like behind the altar and everything. And so let that be a lesson to you. You can drop out and still achieve your dreams. No, that is not the lesson. And when I was a really bad chaplain for a number of reasons, but one of the central reasons I was a bad chaplain was because when I was faced with the reality of what I saw there, sick kids, in many cases kids who died, my only response to it was total hopelessness, anger, despair, and nihilism. That was all I could feel. I went into that experience with all kinds of fancy ideas about why bad things happen, and why some lives are shorter than others, and why suffering is, distributed unjustly among humans, and blah, 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 blah. And all of that was fine and good, except that none of it helped me when faced with the reality that children have suffered and died every single day of human history for no reason, and that they will suffer and die every single day for the rest of human history for no reason. And so immediately after I left the hospital, I began to write about a children's hospital, and I was convinced that I was going to write the great American children's hospital novel, except that I wasn't writing about children or a hospital. In fact, I was mostly writing about a 22-year-old chaplain who was exactly like me, except like much better looking. And the basic plot of all of these stories was, handsome 22-year-old chaplain comes across many lady doctors, all of whom are inexplicably attracted to him, and then which one will he choose? That stuff was really nakedly about me. And I don't just mean that in the sense that it was literally about me, but it was also for me. I was making it for myself. I was making it to process the things that I had seen and struggled with, the things that I'd found traumatic. I was making it not as a gift for you, but to try to help myself. And in my experience, when I make stuff that way, it always sucks. And this was no exception at all. That stuff was all really bad, and then I eventually put it aside and I wrote a different novel. I wrote Looking for Alaska, and then I was like, now I'm going to write my children's hospital book, and I didn't. And then after An Abundance of Catherines, I was like, now is the time. I shall write the great American children's hospital novel, and I didn't. And this happened again and again. And then finally, I was writing a zombie apocalypse novel. I wish that were a joke. I was convinced that this would be my commercially successful book, and then I became friends with a young woman named Esther Earle, who was a nerd fighter. For those of you who don't know what nerd fighters are, there are people, I know most of you know what a nerd fighter is. There are people here who thought that they were coming to a book signing. So I'm going to briefly explain it. I apologize for the redundancy. But Nerdfighters is the community that grew up around the videos that my brother and I make on the Vlogbrothers YouTube channel. And we call ourselves Nerdfighters because we fight for intellectualism, and we fight for nerds, and we celebrate nerd culture, and we try to build spaces on the internet that are about engagement instead of distraction. Places on the internet where we can have a higher quality of discourse. So that's the Nerdfighter community. Esther was a Nerdfighter, and she was also a fan of my books, and from the time that we met in 2009, she was very sick with cancer, and she died in August of 2010 when she was 16. And in our friendship and my friendship with her family and with her friends, I came to understand what I never saw at the hospital, which is that a short life can also be a good and a rich and a full life. And it was through Esther that the chaplain character fell away, and I started to want to write about the kids themselves. And that was when the book stopped being about me, and it started to feel more like a gift, like something that I was making for you. And it particularly felt like a gift because I figured that no one who didn't already like my books would want to read it. Because, you know, it's quite funny, I hope, but it is a smidge sad in parts. That didn't seem like anything that people would choose to put themselves through. But many people have, and I am very grateful, and authors clearly should not be trusted when it comes to choosing what will and will not be successful. It only works when it's a gift. I have to try to make this freely for you, and then sometimes, not always, but sometimes, people will be generous enough to read it, and to read it thoughtfully, and to read it carefully, and that is a wonderful gift that you give back to me. And that gift exchange is really what writing is all about when it works. Esther gave me a tremendous gift in teaching me that short lives can also be good. And she also gave me a tremendous gift by giving me a way into this story. So I'm very grateful to her.